All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are getting started here on our fourth meeting, our fourth get together for this certification challenge. I am super excited to have all of you here to join in because we are all in pursuit of one of these Magento certifications. So I see everybody starting to come in here. It's been a little bit of a different morning for me. Um, so I'll share a little bit about this week as well, simply because I think you all find it interesting in relation to Magento certification. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to take a 5-second break so we can have a clean place for the live stream for future viewers to start out with our not really fancy, little intro graphics. So I'll be back here in just 1 second. Good morning and welcome to meeting number 4 of our certification challenge. This is really great to be with you all. I am excited because we get to talk about, we're going to work through a practice test. We're going to delve into what types of questions are found on these certification tests, and then how can we best work through these questions. Because ultimately the idea of scenario-based questions can be really daunting. And my goal is to get in and we're going to understand how to best approach these types of questions. So I see people showing up here. That's great. Welcome. Good morning. I would be curious. So the question here I'm going to put in front of you all this morning is, when do you have your test scheduled? So hopefully we're going to have the test taken. It's a first quarter certification challenge. So hopefully you'll have it taken before March 31st, and we're going to say goodbye to the first calendar quarter of 2020. So please drop in the comments, the questions, whatever that box is called. When is your date? What date are you looking to take the test? Because I'd be curious to see how everybody is doing there. I have had my test scheduled for, I think it was March 3rd. And at this point, I'm actually going to have to push it off a little bit simply because I've not had this much time. I've been spending some time, I would say today I'm going to catch up on the time I did not spend this week in studying. But my goal is I feel like I needed some extra study time. So could everyone just drop into the comments here, what date do you plan to take the test? What date did you plan to take the test? I am really excited to be here with everyone. Okay, this Thursday, February 20th. Yes, Addie, you can do that. I'd be curious what test you're going to take as well. So actually, what test and the date of this test that you're going to take. I'm really excited about seeing everybody. We've had some great passes already, and so to me that says that this whole challenge is working, which is what I want. So again, the question is, on what date and what certification are you going to take here? February 25th. All right, so we got a number of tests coming right up here. Let's see. Today's the 15th. So yeah, very good. Nice. Solution specialist. Okay. So that reminds me. Let's jump in here. This is where I was this past week. I was in Florida. So as you all know, I live in Kansas City area roughly. And it was a little tough. I missed the family a lot, but going to the nice warm weather was relaxing. But the week wasn't relaxing. So flew out on Monday morning, flight left at 6:15 in the morning, which, as I'm sure you all are aware of, that's early. Basically what I did this week with some other great folks from Magento and just the whole community was we worked on, and I think I should do computer only here so you can see. Yeah, unfortunately, Rodrigo's face is obscured. So what we did was we worked through the Magento test library and we updated it. Basically what Magento does every so often, they get these people together and we work through all the questions on the test and say, for example, it's the average score, and some other statistics along those lines. And the goal is to make these test questions actually prove the candidate who is working to take this test. So Sometimes questions need clarification. Sometimes questions are too easy. Sometimes there's even been a couple questions that are too hard. So the goal is to go through these questions and say, what can we do to improve them and make it more proving of somebody who's going to be certified. So we started out with a front-end developer exam, worked through that, came up with some good updates. Then we worked on the solution specialist. There's some really good updates there as well. So I'm not exactly sure when we're going to take the test, but I think the solution specialist should be updated. Front-end developer is already updated at this moment in time. And then there was also some updates to the professional developer plus, I think even the associate developer. So ultimately, these tests are within the next couple weeks should be updated with some great updates, and I'm really excited about that. So I see people coming on here. That is good. Asma, one thing I would like to mention here is I know you said that you haven't decided when you're going to take your test. I suggest getting that voucher purchased and go get that date put on the calendar. So maybe it's March 14th, whatever. Just even if it's a ways out, get that date on the calendar. Otherwise, I hate to say it, but it's probably never going to happen. I say that maybe you're different than I am, but I know me personally, I'm not going to get it done. So get that on the calendar and you'll be happy. All right. Neha. So that's a good question. Neha asked, exam will contain questions from the current Magento release. Okay, so the goal is to make these exams fairly backwards compatible, but also still compatible with the current release. So there were some updates. I can't say exactly what they were, but so with 2.3.4, there were some changes that came out, and the exams were updated to make it so they were compatible with 2.3.4, but also wouldn't call it break backward compatibility with 2.3.3 or 2.3.0, that sort of thing. So you don't have to worry too much about that. I will say that front-end developer now has an added, I would call it a sub-objective of Page Builder. So there we will be updating our study guide. I think Magento U study guide maybe has already been updated. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we'll be updating our study guide to include information about Page Builder. All right. So, and here's the other funny thing real quick. I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time on this. Here's my desk setup. I'm sure you've seen it in the other configuration. Literally, I get home last night, 7 o'clock. I get down to the studio, what I call it this morning, and you wouldn't believe it, but both of my monitors that I usually use here, completely dead. Go figure. Anyways. All right, so we had a couple of test passes this week. I'm really excited about this. Ruggero and Pavlo. So both of these, and if I missed anyone, please feel free to drop that in the comments. But we are having people pass certifications. So incredible, exciting. We got some heroes here in our presence. So absolutely, this is great. Yes, welcome. Come on, Salvatore. And looks like, all right. Well, let's keep working through this. Okay, so I wanted to again quickly review scopes that we talked about last week. This is probably the number one sticking point for just about any test. And I think it's odd because, well, it's not odd. People understand that this is difficult, but there's a lot of developers and solution specialist candidates that really never use these scopes much, if at all. As such, it kind of creates a void of knowledge, but it also seems really complex, so we don't want to get into it. And as I've said over and over and over again, I think curiosity is probably the number one contributor to successful passes. If you want to pass the test, you have to be curious. So you can read all the books in the world, but if you don't dive into the Magento core, if you don't implement the stuff yourself, if you don't say, okay, I don't know this section of Magento very well, but I'm going to dig in and I'm going to figure this out. That's what you need to do. So these scopes is one of those areas, and I figure it's going to be helpful for everybody. So we already talked about it in last week. I'm going to take a couple minutes and do a high-level review of it. Let's first answer this question. Satish Kumar says, does custom module development experience help passing the professional developer exam? Of course, absolutely. But I will say, if you have not taken The associate developer test. Do not take the professional developer test. You heard it from me. Whatever that's worth. Literally, I see over and over and over again. The professional developer test, you will more than likely fail it. It is extremely difficult. So instead, start with the associate developer and then do the professional developer. Otherwise, you might take 2 tries to get the professional developer or more, and you're out, what's that, $600 now versus spending $500 and getting 2 certifications. Again, take my suggestion for your good. It doesn't benefit me at all to say, take 2 certifications. It doesn't benefit me at all. What it does is it benefits you. So, all right, let's talk about scopes. Again, we have basically 4 to 5 different levels of scopes. We could say up here is, there we go, I got it. We could say we have 4 to 5 scopes. We have global, website, store, and store view, but ultimately up here at the top would be default. So that would be everything specifying SE config, which can specify values for the website or store view. As such, we also have, so basically, we have to remember how some of these scopes work. So we have at the global level, this is every setting. No matter whether it can be overridden at a lower level, global is all settings. When you go into store configuration, that's what you see is global. Website. The website is it's going to be feature switches primarily. Also pricing. Pricing is configured at the website level, as well as the base currency is configured at the website level. And it's really, really important to understand the difference between base and, well, I'm going to say not base because, for example, it'll be get base row total. What's the difference between that and get row total? Again, the difference is base in there indicates this is the value in the base currency. And so big difference there. And if you're going to pass the test, it's important that you understand that difference. Store is the root category as well as the store switcher. So the root category meaning different branches, different set structures of ways to browse a website. So for categories. This is only, the root category is only configured at the store level. So if you want, for example, to have set up one domain with some list of products, and then you set up another domain with another list of products, you would use the store. But keep in mind that if you want the products to only be browsable or like directly browsable, so you copy in the product's URL and drop it into domain1.com, but you don't want it visible on domain2.com, just assigning products to categories is not going to affect that. You have 2 ways to affect that. Number 1 is use the visibility attribute, which is configurable on the store view level. So visibility is set on the store view level, which would be down here. At the website level, you can assign a product to a website or unassign a product to a website. That also is another way to ensure a product is visible or not. Well, a product is viewable is probably the better term under a domain name or not under a different domain name. So there could be some tricky questions on whatever test you are taking about that very issue. And so make sure that you understand what does it take to get a product visible or browsable, as well as what are the ramifications surrounding different category structures, that sort of thing. Okay, and then we have store view. So this is really, okay, visibility is at the store view level, but pretty much everything else is just things that are needing to be translated. So for example, a text field product attribute. So we're going to like a short description or a product name or the label for a shipping method. All of that will be at the store view level. When creating attributes though, it's really important to create them at the greatest the greatest scope possible. For example, you should be creating all select or multi-select attributes. I'm sure there's an exception to this, but you should be creating all select or multi-select attributes in the global scope, never in the store view scope. And again, I'm sure there's an asterisk. I'm sure there's an exception to that rule, but by default, that is the case. Anytime you create a text field and it's internationalized, it's going to be at the store view scope. But just keep in mind, it's going to probably take extra maintenance in order to make that text field work. So people are going to have to manually enter in these translations. So you launch a new presence in France, you're going to have to go through all those text fields and update those values, which is time consuming. All right, let's catch up on some questions here. Ejaz, how does the associate project guide help us in passing the associate exam? Great question. The number one thing that's necessary to pass, especially that exam, is experience. There's a lot of people that can pass it just because they have the experience, but for a lot of others, they don't have the experience. So working through this project guide is an established, documented way to gain experience. So in the project guide, and I'm also working on building out videos that I'll be posting here on the YouTube channel. I have several done already. But in that project guide, my goal is to not only say what to do, as well as give you an example of how I did it. Not only what to do, but also why I did it and how I came up with why I did it. So it's kind of like a training manual from someone who maybe is a little more senior of a developer to those who are a little more junior. So it's kind of the best way I could figure out how to give training, give insight and advice as far as how to bootstrap your chances of success. Oh, Ruggiero, there we go. Thank you. You did a great job answering that already. I didn't see that. Okay. And this is an important thing. So just reading study guides, looking through dev docs is not enough. And I'm being really kind here, but there's, for some reason, there seems like there can be a real aversion to getting into the code, getting into the core, but that is the only way you're going to pass the test. So my study guide is it provides the information, the details around this, and it provides links also how to get into the core too. So it's kind of like a beacon. It's constantly telling you where to go, how to go there. But you also need to get in there and do that yourself. Bat says, ask a question. PWA, does that need to be prepared for front-end developer? No. It's going to be a while before I think they create a test on it, simply because PWA, while some merchants are launching on it, it's bleeding edge technology. And there's a reason why that phrase is called bleeding edge or cutting edge technology. Think of a knife. If you slip while you're cutting an apple, it actually happened to me, or cutting an onion, happened to me a little while ago. It's painful and you're probably gonna get some blood out of it. So PWA Studio, it's not totally ready for prime time yet. So it's coming there. It's working on it, and the results are incredible and outstanding, but it's not quite there yet. So it's not going to be on the test, because ultimately what's really important with these tests is asking questions that have solid references and are not subjective. Anytime you get subjectivity into it, it's like, well, which is the right answer? And you don't want to go there. So, okay. Let's keep working on this. And again, this is really, really valuable chart that I wanted to show you here, what these scopes are if you're available. And actually, I keep forgetting to put the check mark as well for the product inventory in the website column. So, all right. So here's what I really wanted to get to today, and that's talking about practice tests, or ultimately test-taking strategies, or how we can use this. So the questions on the Magento tests, and this last week was a excellent reminder of this. Questions are extremely practical, very, very practical. In fact, what I'm actually going to begin a program of paying people to, and if you all want to join in, to give question suggestions and ideas, simply because I work to do that myself, but getting other people involved, I think it'd be really great. There's so many fantastic ideas and suggestions out there. So let's harness the power of the community and make this whole thing better for everyone. So questions here are extremely practical. What is the effect of this? And I'm thinking of a ton of questions that we reviewed. We reviewed most of the questions on every test. What is the effect of this? Like, so this option is enabled, or merchant is struggling with this problem, or you see this code. What's the result of this? How do you get this done? And I think can be particularly difficult simply because it requires some fairly intricate knowledge of whatever this subject is. What you will not find on the tests is anything related to memorization. For example, I need to implement a new, my favorite here. What payment methods are available in only Magento Commerce? Well, WorldPay or CyberSource used to be, but now it's a module available for anything. So questions like that. Anytime you see just a whole bunch of like class names, probably not going to be on the test. There might be an exception or two, but pretty much you're not going to have to worry about that. So we also have 90 seconds per question averaged out. So the tests are an hour and a half long, and you have 60 questions per test. That's what you have to face in taking this test. 90 seconds per question. It can be difficult to answer these questions. And so that was actually a couple of questions on some of these tests were actually reduced in length. Like they were really, really long questions, and they were shrunk down a little bit. So even Magento works to understand how people are processing these questions and what they can do to make it better. So questions are practical. We're going to expect no memorization related questions. But then we have 90 seconds per question, 60 seconds per test. All right, so didn't have any slides there, but I wanted to jump into this, and I wanted to review what can we learn from working through some practice test questions. We can do this as call it a community project, because funny thing is I might not know the answers to each one of these questions. So we can work through that. If you have suggestions for me, we're gonna do this. So, but my goal is to help us understand the questions and then how to best answer them. So in this case, we have a setup script to create a new customer attribute. Is a business. Unfortunately, this attribute is not appearing on the front end or in the admin panel. What's the solution to get this attribute to appear in the admin panel? All right, so we have 4 options. I do happen to know the answer here, but this question is a little more difficult. Well, actually, here, let me put it this way. We can group these answers. So I think I see 2 groups. You could group based off of length. That's not always the safest. And by the way, I've heard I used to subscribe to some of this, like I call it some superstitions about the longest answer is never the right answer. You don't necessarily want to subscribe to that. So in this case, we have add the attribute, clear the cache, reindex the store, override the admin customer form class, and add the attribute field. All right, so we have these 2. So let's think about this. Customer attributes. Customer attributes, I don't think have anything to do with reindexing the store. Ultimately, they could have something to do with clearing the cache, but if I remember correctly, setup upgrade clears the cache. So the setup script has been run because we presume this, and based off of the answers, there's no answer like the attribute was never added to the EAV attribute table. So as such, I think we can safely eliminate clear the cache or reindex the store. Another one, well, so we've eliminated these middle 2. Now we have answers 1 and 4. Add the attribute to admin HTML customer, or override the admin customer form class, add the attribute field. So one thing to remember here is the admin customer form class does not exist. It's actually a UI component. So we have just eliminated all the wrong answers. That said, I do happen to know that there is a customer form attribute table, which has, and we need to add admin HTML customer. So that's how we dealt with this first question right here. That said, if you don't have knowledge of this, well, yeah, it's going to be pretty difficult. You were asked to enable layered navigation on a category. How do you make the sidebar show available filters? All right, enable anchor on the category. Change the category's design layout to layered navigation. Change the category's layered navigation equals enabled. etc. So basically, there's like 4 ways in the admin panel to make this happen. So ultimately, we have to decide which one is the real answer, which one is the distractors. All right, so enable is anchor on the category. This one is probably going to be a little more difficult, except as I'm looking at this, all of these answers use layered navigation, and this one does not, which could be a indicator that is the right one. So that might actually be a good one to review, to update a little bit here to make it the distractors a little more plausible. All right. Product attribute is responsible for generating a friendly URL path. This one would be a little bit more memorization. There's going to be a couple like that on the test. So this would be the URL key attribute. So URL path, technically, that does not actually exist. Slug does not exist, and the name is not directly responsible for creating the friendly URL path. All right. You need to change the template for the breadcrumbs block on a specific page to my company, my module, breadcrumb template. How do you do this? All right, so we have several options here. Reference name is breadcrumbs, template is that. Reference block is breadcrumbs, argument name is template. And actually, it's funny. This week, as we were, every question that we reviewed, one of us read out loud. So you get a lot of experience reading these questions. So we have, so we see the difference here, arguments, and then template, action set template, and then updated template. So we have several options here. And the correct answer is this one, reference block breadcrumb setting the template there. Ultimately, in some cases, this used to work. It does not work. I don't think it works. Understand it works anymore. Set template. That's kind of Magento 1 era. I think it was carried over to Magento 2, but it definitely is no longer legit. An updated template does not work either. So again, we can kind of group these together. But in this case, grouping doesn't work too well. You see, this one is fairly knowledge driven. So, okay, if I've done this before, I'm like, yeah, it's template. So that makes it easy. You need to fetch all the product names for all simple enabled products. Which Magento feature do you use? Okay, let's talk about this. So we see there's a helper, or repository helper, resource model, and collection. Okay, what is a repository? A repository allows us to load entire objects from the database. While that would work, it is definitely not the most performant. And as such, loading all simple enabled products could be a very long, massive prospect. So I think we're going to eliminate repository. Helpers do not exist in Magento 2. Resource models do. But it's kind of a pain for EAV. In fact, it'd be a real pain. So as such, we can select collection because we would say add field to filter or add attribute to filter, and it would be collection. You've added a new entry, ACL entry, into your module's etc/acl.xml. However, it is not appearing in the system user role resources. What's the solution? All right, so let's talk about what we need to do. So clear out the generated directory, reindex the website, clear the cache, or add a resource ID into the controller or admin HTML menu.xml. Okay, so again, this is somewhat experience-based, somewhat knowledge as well. So the generated directory, what goes in there? Well, that would be, for example, interceptors and factories as well. As such, there's no ACL that goes in there. So we can kick that response out. Reindex the website. No, but ACL doesn't have anything to do with reindexing. Clearing the cache. Well, the ACL is cached to help speed that up, so that could be an option. Or add the resource ID into the controller to show that it is used. Yeah, that seems reasonable. But ultimately, it doesn't have to be used in order to appear in the admin panel. So the answer is clear the cache. What are 2 ways to install a module in Magento? We have the web setup wizard, create a directory in vendor, copy the module files into it, place the modules file in app code, or add the modules information into Composer lock. I think we all would agree on modules files, but also web setup wizard does and can work. So the modules information in composer lock, that's not really going to do anything. You've created a new customer address attribute to specify whether or not somebody is at a residential address. Unfortunately, this new address is not appearing when you go to the front end, My Account Address Book Edit. How do you solve this? All right, add the attribute to the customer address form, reindex the store, override this, and clear the cache. Now, this brings up a really interesting point of discussion here. I'm sure you remember just a couple minutes ago, we saw something about customer address. Also on that was reindexing the store, override, clear the cache. Now, Magento works hard to try to keep these type of questions in separate pools because they're fairly similar. And ultimately, I try to do that too in our pools here, pools of questions. This one obviously slipped by me, just to be really frank. So, but you can use knowledge that you gain off of other ones to help future ones be easier to answer. As such, I think we would all agree that add the attribute to the customer address form in customer in there. Actually, but that's not the answer. As I'm rereading this question, I did not read it carefully. You actually have to override the address edit.phtml. So this question was not about saving the address. The question was about overwriting it, because if the question was about saving the address, I believe A here would have been the correct answer. You have just completed building a new module and have tested that it works. Great. And this is some really important information when it says this is feeding you elimination of possible issues. So, okay, we've tested that it works. We have tested that it works. So the module is enabled. It is ready to go. You are now ready to commit the code for review. This module uses extension attributes and stores data about orders in a separate table. What action must you take to ensure that this module will behave properly in production? All right. Ensure composer JSON contains the correct version. Add the module's name to app-etc config. Create a schema whitelist for the module. Double check the install process properly executes. All right. So ultimately, composer JSON having the right version is no longer is not necessary at this point. In the future, it probably will be. But we can add the module's name to app-etc config, but we already know that this module works, so that's not necessary. Create a schema whitelist for the module. So this sounds plausible because the schema whitelist is important when code is going to production, so as to not delete or update any tables that shouldn't be touched, or double check the install process properly executes. So I'm going to suggest that C here would be the correct answer. What is the purpose of a theme's etc view.xml file? So this file provides information for aspects of how the theme will be rendered. This file initializes the theme in Magento. This file associates a module in app code with this theme. This file is not used in themes. All right, so again, if you built a theme, you should know immediately what the answer is for this. And the answer is A. So this basically provides configuration for, like, for example, image sizes and other information about how this theme will be used. All right. You added new configuration value to store configuration. In which file do you specify the default hard-coded value? And of all of these, it will be in etc config. So I think you're getting the picture as we go through some of these, that there is there's some component of just test-taking knowledge and trying to understand how this stuff works together. But there also is a component of course, knowledge, doing it, getting in there. And that's where, especially this, what do I say? On the associate developer, this project guide is so important. If I could ask one favor, it's just to work through that, because it's going to help you. You're going to know the answer to quite a number of those questions. We don't get into EAV attributes on there, but I'm wanting to expand it out to get you experience on some of that. It's going to be a big help to you. All right. So I think that's what I wanted to cover for this, and I think it would give you a good picture of what how this works, how the test works. And again, I am going to actually hopefully put on the website today. We could work together to create more practice test questions, because I think this is going to be valuable to everyone. And I think I only have so much inspiration myself, but all of you have great inspiration. And the best is those practical questions. Okay, I'm fixing this problem. So how does this work? How do I get this problem resolved? From stuff that you're doing day to day. And that's really what I'm hopeful to leverage here in this process. So that was an idea that just came to me this week, and really hoping that we can pull it off together as a community. All right. So is there any questions that we maybe could talk about that I could answer in regards to passing these certifications? We usually have a few minutes here to go through Q&A. Any questions? And well, actually, while we are talking about any questions, if you all, as you're watching, and so glad, honestly, to have you all here. I'm really excited. I think my goal is to give you every tool that I possibly have and can give you in order to pass. So this is kind of call it an exclusive group. We're working together here. We're learning. We're growing together. If you all wouldn't mind, I'd love it if you make sure to like this video. Even subscribe to the channel. Again, you know I'm not one to just constantly harp on that, but it does mean a lot to me. Honestly, it does mean a lot to me every time that someone clicks that like button, that when somebody clicks subscribe to our channel. It's really motivational, and it's really, really, it's motivational for me. All right. So, Ejaz asked when to do when all the answers look the same. All right. When the answers look the same, it is difficult. I agree. And the best thing you're going to do is just try to eliminate answers quickly. So it's going to take careful reading. It's going to take maybe a review of the question. It's also going to, I think next week, we'll probably talk about test taking strategies. It's going to take a careful, or you might have to click this question for review. So in the bottom, when you're taking the test, you can mark it for review. You can go look at it later and see what's going on. And so meaning you come back to this question before you actually press submit on the test itself. So I suggest rereading the question, doing anything you can to eliminate the answers. Personally, I have seen that it seems that fewer on these Magento tests, there's less and less answers that are looking the same. In the answers that do look the same are probably going to be updated in the future. It doesn't affect you, I know that, right now when you want to take the test. But the answers are looking the same, makes those questions a lot more difficult to answer. So I guess I don't have a lot of really good advice for you on that one. Is the associate guide going to be changed much from now till March? So are we talking about Salvatore? Are we talking about the associate or the associate study guide, or the associate project guide? The project guide is always in flux. It's always, my goal is to have it always being updated as you all submit changes, suggestions. That's great. The study guide, I think I'm not aware of many updates that we need to make from this last go around of certification updates. So I think that's going to change, stay pretty much set there. Well, thank you, Salvatore. Said they're a Swift Otter channel addicted. Wow, that's great. So I hope this is good content, helpful information, because I'm sharing everything I know. So hopefully that is helpful for you. All right, Addie, the associate guide mentions practical tests with follow-through videos. Do you have a roadmap of when this will be released? Yes. So that is the associate project guide. You'll find it if you go to the associate developer study guide page. It's one of the links on the side there. Basically, I'm working on the videos for that. It's taken me a lot longer than I thought it was going to take me. I have kind of some other stuff going on in life. So, Hopefully today I'll get a whole bunch more recorded, and I'd love to get one video recorded every day, going on starting next week, but we'll see. All right. Oh, so, the associate test. So my understanding, I didn't actually work specifically on that test, but my understanding on the associate test, there were no major changes made to that. So the study guide remains the same. The content covered remains the same. The only thing that changes is they were working on some questions that maybe weren't so clear, or questions that were too easy, that sort of thing. So I wouldn't worry about that very much. It should be improved. And honestly, that's the way I look at it. Every time these groups meet, the result is a better test, easier to understand, but testing the same material. So ultimately, in other words, the questions aren't and answers are not getting in the way of submitting the right information, of providing the right information on whatever this is. Bat asked, how can I take Magento 2 TV subscription for free? Let me put it this way. So Vinay, it was great. I really enjoy spending time with Vinay. He's incredibly intelligent, very technical. And so he was at the certification group here this past week. He was on my team as well. So it was a lot of fun. So I'm not aware of a way to take that for free. And yeah, so I guess I don't really have any answers on that, but other than just reminiscing, he's such a great person, very intelligent and very technical. Echas, we'll be creating videos on practical development like Magento TV. Yes. I'm not going to say like Magento TV. It's very different audiences, very different people who will be watching this. So the Magento TV is very technical, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Like, it is, if you want to grow as a developer, you need to get Magento TV. If I don't remember how many, it's like 10, if I remember correctly, like 10 euros a month. Super cheap compared to the knowledge that you will gain out of that. Just sit down and watch a couple videos a month. You will benefit your career like nothing else. But for the associate project guide, my goal with these videos is for those who are beginning Magento development, those who are just starting out, who don't necessarily have a solid foundation or really working to up their game. So this is learning with a goal in mind as opposed to just professional development. It's both. It is professional development, but the project guide is to help you pass this certification, and you will gain a lot of knowledge at this time as a result as well. Addie, yes, is the order export module from the free project, or yes, so that is the project guide. So we work through building an order export module. It actually is a real life module, pretty close to a real life module that I've already built for one of our merchants. Not quite as complex as what that one is, but basically the order export module is, you have to create a module that allows you to push the order out to an external third-party API. Of course, retrieve results back from that and display those to the user. So it's mostly back-end coding. There is some front-end, because ultimately there is some front-end knowledge that's required on the associate developer test, very minimal. But it is my belief that should get you at least 70% of the knowledge required to pass the associate developer test. There's some areas that are not covered, and I hope to extend the project guide to cover those areas to be able to get the last 30% of knowledge required. So I think that answers the questions thus far. Any other questions that we might have, be happy to answer them. We will be getting together again in 2 weeks. I don't have the date on that. I'll post it in our Slack channel. Let's see here. On the 29th. Hey, leap year. 29 days in February. So if anybody here has a birthday on February 29th, happy birthday. For the rest of the other 3 years, I'm sorry that you don't have a birthday, but I do understand that most people like that celebrate it on March 1st, which does work out okay. So birthday is retained. So we'll be here back together on February 29th, talking about test-taking strategies. So we already talked about some of that, but there's a whole bunch more information that we can cover. So today's was how we can use the practice test, how we can work together on that. All right. Oh, another question. Another question. Let's answer another question. Sergi, so does the Magento 2 solution have many questions about Magento 2 Cloud? Not very many questions at all. You can look at the subject. Well, okay. So here's a little trick that I often use. So each test has 60 questions. And if I remember correctly, again, off the top of my head, let's get my calculator out here. 60 times, times 0.2 is 12 questions. So, I'm really stretching my memory now. I think one second. Excuse me. I think man. All right. I think the Objective 2 and Solution Specialist is it 5 or 6 sub-objectives? So there's Objective 2 is 20% of the test, roughly. It's going to have, say, 6 objectives or 6 topics on there. And so you divide that out, 12 questions probably on Objective 2. That'll be 2 questions per sub-objective. So 2.1 should have 2 questions. So there might be 2 questions on there. You can decide whether you want to study that or not. I know our study guide has some information. You could view the dev docs. I think there's a user guide as well for cloud. So all of that's going to have some information, and that might be just enough as it is to hopefully answer those questions correctly. All right. Ejaz, helpers are no longer available in Magento 2. So I want to make that really clear here. So helpers are available. Well, you can name any class anything. There's no helper data anymore in Magento 2. But the thing is that helpers have been eclipsed. They were kind of like this dumping ground for any extra method. So that's where you would maybe use services or you could use some actions, something like that. Basically, you're breaking this up. So instead of these massive helpers that used to existed in Magento 1, you can break them up into smaller chunks, easier to test, more resemblant as far as what these methods do in there, that sort of thing. So that's kind of another topic for another time. I'll be happy to jump into that and talk about it another time in the future. All right. Very good. Wow, this has been outstanding time together today. Hope it's been beneficial to you again. If you're just coming on, this is where we're talking about certifications, becoming Magento 2 certified. And I hope that each one of you, it takes the opportunity to study, to put in everything you have in order to successfully pass this test. Hope to see you here in 2 weeks, where we're going to talk about test preparation suggestions. So take care and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.